gonna kick you.
Today, Tim and I are talking about comparison robbing your joy. If this interests you, pay attention. It's going to be a good one. Welcome to the Mindset Mentors Real Estate Podcast. I'm Pete Rick.
And I'm Tim Myers. We believe success in life is dictated by your mindset and your daily habits.
Our goal is to share actionable information that will help you reach the next level of success in every area of life.
Now let's dive in.
We're diving in
head first. Comparison robbing your joy is something that you should be prosecuted for, but unfortunately you can't, so you have to deal with it yourself.
What do you mean by that?
I don't really know. I just thought it was funny. The concept that we want to go through today is what robbing your joy means and where that can come from as far as social media, as far as what your friends are doing, as far as your family's expectations. Something that, topically, I've experienced, and I know you have as well, is thinking that maybe you should be doing something different, better, whatever it might be, and how that makes you feel not great. So that's the
end. So this topic, comparing yourself to others, whether it is social media or, I would honestly say, at least from my experience, 99% of it is social media. Everybody posts their highlight reels in terms of like, hey, this is the car I drive now, or this is my cool house, or I'm killing it in real estate. I sold $600 million last year. Like, that's awesome. The problem is that we all compare ourselves to other people, whether it's within our industry or our peer group or our friends from college or whatever it is. And it's really, really unhealthy. If anything, and what I really, really try to do but struggle with is just compare myself to how I was 1, 2, 3, 5 years ago. I was a shithead 5 years ago, honestly. I think I've gotten a lot more mature, but
that's a good thing.
That's the way. At least I would say you're not then robbing yourself by the comparison of others in social media.
So the thought that I'm having then too is specifically with social media and the expectations that are maybe in specifically real estate, what you're supposed to be doing. And it kind of comes back to the idea of, if you're feeling like you should be doing more, or if you think you didn't do a good enough job previously, what's really kind of happening is you're not being present. And because of that, you're not paying attention to what it is that you're doing, maybe on a daily, hourly, weekly, whatever basis. Because you're like, oh man, if I only did the thing in college better and I worked harder, then I could have, I don't know, college isn't a good example, but if I tried harder in the past, it would have been better now. Or, that example, I think, is where it can really go down a rabbit hole.
Yeah, the woulda, coulda, shoulda game where, if I'd only done that. The past is the past. There's nothing you can do now. I would say, before my dog started barking, I had a very good line of thinking on this. The other thing too, I guess, whether it's like, say I'm about to be 30. I'm 30, this person's 26 that I follow, and they have a much, much higher level of success that I aim to have, someday. I would say that is where it can be dangerous too, is like, this person was able to achieve this by this time. I'm nowhere near that. That's difficult because everyone is on a different path, whether we realize it or not. And so maybe what we think we want now, 10 years from now, is not the thing that we're going to want by that point. And there's a lot of things we don't even know yet.
That's so off of that was honestly off the thought I was going to say next to so I'm 31 as of 3 days ago. 21-year-old me in absolutely no capacity could have pictured what I'm up to right now. And I very much think that is going to be the same at 41, 51, and 61. There's pieces of the puzzle that you do control very much, but the opportunities that are presented to you, the COVID things that happen, the good things that happen also that you don't have any control over, are variables that you have to work through. And that's honestly a really good example as to who would have thought, And I use that as an example now too, where it's like, how much is this house worth? Where it's like, it's worth what you're willing to pay. You know, I can't tell you what the market's going to be doing in 6 months. I can't tell you what it was. Oh, we should have bought when the interest rates were so much lower. It's like, well, you didn't. And so what we can focus on now is bringing it back to the present moment. At $250,000, what is your monthly? And you just kind of ground yourself into what's your monthly payment at 250. Now it doesn't matter where it's going to go. We don't have control. It doesn't matter what it was in the past. We don't have control. You know, just for the real estate topic example.
I'd say, and I mean, this is not to go as specific with what you were just saying, but like the hindsight bias with this too, looking back and saying, oh, you know, had I done this, had I done that, or, you know, what is it the hindsight bias where you look back and you think, I mean, you're thinking of things much differently than you did at that current moment in time while you were going through it. So let's say, for example, you went through a very hard time, whatever that might be. During that time, it was hell. You hated it. And then now, looking back, say that was 5 years ago, you said, man, I'm glad that happened. I'm glad I went through that because it made me a stronger person. Is that hindsight bias? I'm trying to think of like the example of what I'm going for here.
I would say that makes sense as far as the I guess difference would be comparison bias. You also don't know what someone else is going through. Maybe they look phenomenal on Instagram and, you know, their mom isn't doing so well health-wise. Mm-hmm. You know, there's always going to be something in someone's life somewhere. And to that, you know, I learned it a couple years ago too, where if someone does pass away, just for the most extreme example possible, right? If someone does pass away, it's, you know, it's not that you are upset because you lost that person. It's that you're upset because you wish you hadn't and you wish it was different than it is. And it takes time to accept the present. You can spend the rest of your life in that past wishing, oh my goodness, I wish that it would have been different than it was. What could have been? Or, you know, it's wanting an outcome that happened to be different. So, you know, with comparison robbing your joy, again, with the most extreme example that I can think of is death, where, oh, well, that person didn't lose their parent, you know, and that is such a lucky thing for them. You know, you can be happy for them too. You know, you can just pay attention to how you feel with, does that make sense?
It does, yeah.
Grounding yourself in what reality is.
Yeah, I actually just had something that popped into my head. This is like kind of a funny thought experiment, right? So what if, you know, we as the entire world agreed that 1 week of time, instead of all trying to one up each other in terms of like how great our lives are via comparison, what if we just had a comparison week of how bad our problems are? Because I would be willing to bet that if everybody aired out every issue they have in their lives, more times than not, you'd probably take your own problems than somebody that you very well know.
Right. And that's the Tony Robbins-ism, where it's like you think the traffic is bad and a problem until your car breaks down, and then that becomes a problem, and then your wife leaves you, and that's a bigger problem.
Yep.
Until you get diagnosed with cancer.
Yep.
And then none of that matters. And so it's having some perspective. So that, I guess the question for you, Tim, is what are ways that you can combat comparison robbing your joy, to continue the thought that you know kind of just wrong?
Yeah, I mean, I would say, you know, to hit on again, what I personally try to do is just compare myself to how I was previously.
Yeah, me too.
That's the biggest one. But then the other thing too is I think, I don't know where I heard this recently, but it was like, listen to your jealousy or envy or whatever, because it's telling you, is that Mel Robbins?
Yeah.
It's telling you, you know, where you want to go. And I think, like, I'll give you, I think this was an example she said, like, I'm not personally jealous or envious of Jeff Bezos because I am nowhere close to that man, obviously, right? Yeah, but if I'm jealous of somebody who, let's say, is 32 years old, maybe, you know, better looking or has like more success in business, has more rental, whatever it is, I might be envious or jealous of that person because like I'm close to that, but not quite there yet. Whether that's like a friend in your friends group or somebody you follow on social media, that's where it gets tough, is not comparing, yet listening to that and realizing maybe you are a lot closer than you think. So just listen to that in your head, I guess.
So it might not be her idea, but that was in the book, The High Five Habit, which is a very good book. Did you read that one?
I didn't. I heard her like summary of it. Yeah.
So Mel Robbins is an amazing author and speaker. Her example for that was she went to a dinner party. Her friends had just recently renovated their kitchen and their home was absolutely beautiful. And the whole car ride home, she bitched at her husband about, why doesn't our kitchen look like that? And I really want that. We don't have any fucking money in the, and just was going off. And then like years later, she uses that example now, like in her speeches, to have a very easy, relatable thing where it's like, exactly what you just said, Tim, pay attention to the things that you repeatedly seem to be jealous of, whether that's someone's relationship or somebody's home or somebody's business and career or fitness. And the same way that we just said 10 minutes ago of pay attention to your anxiety, if you're paying attention to your emotions in general, they're usually occurring because they're trying to show you something. And if you're jealous, then being aware of, well, I'm always jealous of that. It's like, well, what could I do to get my own version of that kitchen? And then you ground yourself back in reality is a very consistent theme.
Yeah.
And you can break it into like, well, I need $50,000. It's like, okay, what do I have to do to get that? And then you can overcome and not let it rob your joy because you have a plan to achieve it if you really want it, or
or is it like an irrational,
I can't think of an example right now of a thing that I would like feel jealous of, but the Ferrari maybe is like, where it's like, well, I could do that. I just have to do this, and this for a long time, and it's a lot of work. So my point is like, when you put a value to what your goals would actually take, then you can decide whether or not you're actually willing to do that.
Yeah.
And if you're not willing to do it, it's
right.
a lot easier to let go of the jealousy part.
That's a very good point. Like if you actually can quantify like what it would take to get there. Like I remember when I started real estate, I was like, oh man, my first year or like second year, it's like, oh, I'm going to sell at least like 50 properties. And then I actually looked at like the activities it would take to do that. And I was like, I don't think I want to do that. Right. But like at least break it down so that you understand digestively and like visualize it, picture yourself doing those things. And if it seems like it's miserable and not worth your while, then at least you know, and you'll stop doing that and driving yourself crazy.
Yeah. And here's one more with that too. So the idea is, okay, I want a vacation home. Pick your example. So his would be maybe skiing in Denver. Mine would be in Key West, right? What's that house cost? 1.2 million. Okay, 800,000. Go onto the internet, Google the house, look at the photos. Okay, I would make an offer on that property. It's $800,000. Put it into a mortgage calculator. See what it actually would cost you to do that. If it's $12,000 a month and you need to have that to make the payment, then you can do the math and figure out, well, to get 12 grand a month, I'm going to have to do this. And then you make your goals tangible and real. And that's something where it's fun in the process. And what you ultimately usually, at least in my experience doing that, realize is it's actually a lot closer than you think.
Yeah.
Because by the age of 51 or 41 or whatever, I could probably, and then you start to make it real, and then you have a plan, and then you can actually act. So instead of comparison robbing your joy, being like, oh, that house is so beautiful, I'll never have that. It's like, well, you haven't taken the time to do the math on your goals.
Yeah.
And figure out what it takes.
I'd say one thing this like revolves me back to is last week I discovered a YouTube channel. What is it? The Series of Wonder, or what? We'll have to get back to you on what it's actually called. But there was a video in there, and essentially it was on a similar. We can put a link in there. It was on a similar topic, but it was essentially this kid who grew up, and then eventually he was always looking for that next thing, and all along the way he was thinking, man, it must be nice to be that happy. If only I could get that. Then he gets there, and he realizes that towards the end of his days, it's a shallow pursuit. And so I think it's more about some of the intangibles in life. Like it's great somebody can post a Ferrari and you might want that, but I don't know, maybe stop looking outside of what you already have for the happiness that you're capable of. Easier said than done, but if there's any big takeaway I took from that is stop searching so hard for it and just take it in with what you currently have, and you'll have more gratitude, and then I'm sure that'll trickle into you doing better overall. You'll have better mental health,
right,
which leads to more success in other areas of your life,
and you're more likely to actually achieve the thing if you feel good,
right?
And with all of that too, it's not the Ferrari or the house or the relationship that gives you the feeling of happiness. It's just not. It's your, and the thing that I love too is you're able to experience those feelings of happiness now. And you know, if you close your eyes for 10 minutes and just think about what you want, that car, that whatever it is. Car is a consistent example because we both like cars, but I've driven a Ferrari before. It's very fun. And realistically, I don't want to drive a Ferrari through the city of Pittsburgh because it would be the most stressful experience ever. I would love a Ferrari.
Yeah.
But I don't
until you ding it.
Yeah, until you ding it. But it's like, it's not South Florida.
Right.
And then you're like, you it's not that you don't want to achieve the thing. It's just like, okay, if I had it today, would my life be different?
Right.
You know, in the expectation, Tony Robbins has another good one as well. I just read a lot of his books, where he was on one of the first flights ever that Wi-Fi was on the plane, and like 9 minutes into the flight, the Wi-Fi dropped and it never came back on for the like 12-hour international flight he was on. And 9 minutes ago, it had never even existed, and it was already an expectation. Like, people were pissed off. They were so, there's like, this freaking plane doesn't have the thing, it's not working.
Right.
It's like, it didn't exist 9 minutes ago, and it's already an expectation. If you're comparing to the past, you're robbing your joy. And he's sitting there just like observing everybody, like writing this down, being like, this is an unbelievable experience.
This is going to be in my next book.
Yeah. And seriously, where it's like the Wi-Fi thing is such an easy one too.
Yeah.
It's like, you look to the past to learn and like dream about the future. But if you're just not doing the best you can to remain grounded in what's presently happening, you're always going to be feeling some sort of comparison, frustration, and unhappiness that comes from that.
Yep. So what are the takeaways? Be as happy as you can in the now with what you have currently, and only compare yourself to older versions of yourself.
Yeah, it's like there's the Matthew McConaughey Oscar award-winning whatever he won speech, where he's like, my what is it? His hero is him 10 years from now.
Yeah.
And
that's pretty good.
Look at us doing that sentence as a group. His hero is himself 10 years in the future. To be that guy, what am I going to have to do now? It's good to dream. It's good to learn from your past. But I think the takeaway for me is do what you can and learn as much as you can about how to stay present and grounded through maybe some gratitude, prayer, exercise, whatever you need to feel good within yourself. Because if you don't do those things, you'll never be satisfied by the external pursuit of anything.
Yeah. What if we all started comparing each other by how many people we help or how good we make people feel?
Growth and contribution.
Right. Start doing that instead of how many things does this person have? How many commas are in their bank account?
Right.
Doesn't matter.
Define success for yourself, everyone out there listening. I can't wait to look back at these podcasts in 10 years and compare myself then to ourselves now. It'll be a great time. So thank you for listening.
Thank you.
We appreciate everybody who listens, and please leave a comment, share the show, let us know what you want to hear about in the future, and look forward to the next one.